Dr. Brian Scott with you. Thank you for joining me today. We are at the end of the week here in January. I believe it's the third week of the month. That's pretty cool. We're almost at the end of the month already. And we've been studying in the Insight to the End Times program. Lately, we've been studying a lot of world events that have been occurring because they are pointing out to us the perilous times we're living in, and the fact that there's darkness on the people, darkness on the nation, gross darkness on the people. These are things that are all signs of the very, very end, and we continue to get closer and closer. Today, once again, I want to just repeat our verses out of Joel chapter 2, verse 1 and 2, where this prophet said to us, this is Old Testament, and he said to us, blow the trumpet in Zion and sound an alarm in the holy mountain. For the day of the Lord is at hand. The day of the Lord is coming. It is at hand. And then he went on to say in verse 2, glory to God, that darkness and gloominess is a day of darkness and gloominess. It's a day of clouds and darkness, thick darkness. Yeah, that's where we're living today. It's really quite amazing how messed up this world is becoming. And, there's an awful lot of stuff that occurs that you and I never become aware of. We live in can I say it this way? I don't mean any disrespect, but we live in a bubble. We've created our own bubble, and our bubble's as big as we want it to be. And in many cases, our bubble is just me and my wife and us four and no more type of mentality. If it's not hurting us, if it's not touching us, okay. We have been programmed to accept higher costs for everything. You know what I'm talking about. We turn around and it's higher costs. It costs more money to live. It costs more money to keep the gas in the car, takes more money to buy the groceries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It is absolutely amazing. But I want to share with you in this session today that our world has entered into what I call unjust scales. That, you have the scales of justice. I should have brought it in. I have one in my office. It's like a big T, and it has two scales below it, and up and down. We live in a time of unjust scales.
Hey, this is Matt from Insights to the End Times. I wanted to interrupt just for a quick moment and ask you to do us a huge favor. If you could go ahead and hit the like, share, or subscribe button, it would allow us to make sure that you stay up to date with all the latest videos from Dr. Scott. Now back to the episode.
I'm going to read two verses to you. If you have your Bible, I'm in Proverbs, the book of Proverbs, and chapter 11 and verse number 1. New King James Version says, dishonest scales are an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. So there's the writer of Proverbs telling us, a dishonest scale is an abomination to God. That's amazing. Over in chapter 20 and verse number 23, it says, diverse weights are an abomination to the Lord, and dishonest scales are not good. So you probably haven't heard too much on those verses before, but we have entered into a time frame in life, in the world in which we live today, where the scales of justice have shifted and changed dramatically, like really dramatically. And I can only speak to North America, and only to a certain extent to our neighbor to the south, the United States. But I can speak a little more clearly on what's going on in our Canadian mentality and our Canadian systems. And I don't recognize it, folks, to tell you the truth. I went to law school, and I ended up practicing law for the first 17 years of my professional life. And I saw a lot of things going on. But you could always rely on the fact that the law was the law was the law. It was fairly black and white. There were legal precedents that had been established, and we could rely on those. And so it was very easy, much easier then to come to like a point of view or a decision as to the legality or illegality of things that were going on. And whether it be in the criminal system or the civil system, it was pretty easy to figure it out. Not so today. Even though I haven't practiced in many years, I still, once a lawyer, always a lawyer type of mentality. Once a Marine, always a Marine, that type of thing. I'm appalled at what I see occurring. I'll give you some ideas here, but the scales of justice have shifted and changed. I've said it before on these podcasts. When I studied and when I practiced, a person was considered to be innocent until proven guilty. Now it seems to be the other way around. A person is considered to be guilty until proven innocent. And we have a lot of accusations today. We have a lot of harassment today. We have a lot of lying and statements that are being made, slanderous statements being made, accusations being made that you don't have to prove the accusation. You don't have to prove the statement. You don't have to prove it, whether it be right or wrong or truthful or not truthful. The onus is now on the person being accused to disprove it, to prove their innocence. So it seems to me, and from my limited perspective, having moved out of practicing on an ongoing basis, but it seems to me that it's the opposite. It seems to me that we have reached a point where you are guilty until you prove your innocence. And in other words, the system has been weaponized. And the system is weaponized in order to make accusations against someone that you don't like or you want to hinder them. And it's up to them to prove otherwise. Let me give you some more examples. What are these examples showing to us? The darkness, Isaiah 60, the darkness on the land, gross darkness on the people, out of control. In athletics, we had, what we call boys sports and girls sports, men's sports, women's sports. So you had men's downhill skiing. You had women's downhill skiing. You had men's volleyball tournaments. You had women's, you know what I'm saying. There was a clear and distinct line. Then all of a sudden, as an outgrowth, I believe, of the, what they call now by initials, LGBTQ, that kind of thing, all these initials. And not just a few, but the list is pretty wide. But we had this concept of transgender occurring. And this transgender was where, for the most part, it seemed, it was a male wanting to be a woman and identifying as a woman, such that if they made the statement, maybe I'm simplifying this way too much, but if they made the statement that I am a woman, then I had to be treated as a woman, which meant I had access to all women's locations, restrooms, washrooms, the gym shower rooms, and so on and so forth. What could we do about it? Nothing. They were protected. Government edict, government laws. Government stood behind them, wanted to assure them that they could do whatever they wanted. And we had a few of the women wanting to be men, but for the most part, it was the men wanting to be women. So in my research and my reading, it's been in the newspapers here just recently, heavy duty in the newspapers, where in fact it was this past weekend, like 1 week ago, this is Friday, 1 week ago, I was reading newspapers, national newspapers, and they had numerous articles on the fact that a male accused of criminal activity, sent to prison, declares, I'm a woman. I identify as a woman. I want to be in the women's prison. And they moved them over to the women's prison. Several cases talked about men who had been accused of rape and murder. And we'll call them John going into prison, but then they turn around and say, no, my name is Julia. And I'm a woman, and they put them into a women's prison. And the next thing you know, they've acted over there, conducting themselves and raping women in that setting and have to be removed. Folks, it's so obtuse. But one of the things that caused me some hope is there was an article that the United States Supreme Court was dealing with a case to ban males from all women's sports in the United States. Of course, the progressives and those who are strongly standing for the transgender issue are all up in arms. But at least there's a potential for that to change. But folks, that's what we call unjust scales. And it's an abomination to God. And so on and so forth. Look, what about the police? The police are being attacked constantly by progressive left-wing groups who want them defunded because there's a few bad officers. There's a few bad everywhere in everything. But come on. They want to defund the police, the only protection that people have. This is unjust scales. We have parole standards here in Canada that have gone crazy. And especially men who have committed heinous crimes, whether it be abduction of young girls, or whether it be abuse, or whether it be rape, or whether it be murder, or any number of things. These men are criminals. They are found guilty. They are placed in prison. And then within a short period of time, they're up for parole. They're up for day leave. They're up for being put back into society. And what do? The same thing again. And this has been in the newspapers of late. For some reason or other, our Canadian government has gone so soft on this criminal sector, and they're offering bail just about to anything and everybody, which means they're out of they get out of prison. Oh, it's crazy. Unjust scales, dishonest scales. These verses are very, very real verses because we're seeing it everywhere. You could read the newspapers, or you could read the news off your cell phone, or you could read the news off your computer, and you could conclude that article I just read, that's unjust scales. That's dishonest scales. That's an abomination to God. And on it goes. I've been watching, just out of curiosity, on YouTube, some of the hearings that have been occurring over the last number of months in the United States, where they are Senate hearings. So they have senators who are questioning individuals in positions of responsibility and leadership and so on. They're pretty aggressive hearings. They're pretty aggressive questions that are being raised and so on. It's quite entertaining, really, to watch. But what I can't get over is that what they're going after are the lies that people have said as if they are truth. And they are so committed to the lie that they have shared or is being shared in their departments, that as far as they're concerned, it's the truth. And what right do you have to even question me on it? It's like, wow. Can people not see that this was wrong? These things are just really, really weird. I want to tell you, really, really weird. So that brings me to a last verse in this session today. And it's out of the New Testament, book of James, chapter 3, verse 16. And in the King James Version, it reads this way: where envy and strife exist, there will be confusion and every evil work. Now, in the Amplified Version, here's what it says. Wherever there is jealousy, envy, and contention, which is rivalry and selfish ambition, there will also be confusion, unrest, disharmony, and rebellion, and all sorts of evil and vile practices. So simplified version, where there's envy and strife, where there's jealousy and strife, you're going to have confusion and every evil work. Well, we see that everywhere today, where strife is the order of the day. We see it in almost every one of our government levels, whether it be at the senior level, the junior, intermediate level, the local level, even in the school boards. And wow, we even see it in church boards. Come on. It seems to be the order of the day. Strife is everywhere. Then you have envy. People are envious of one another. They're envious of this and that and something else. The net result of that is you end up with confusion and evil. Now, I was studying another expanded version of that verse. I paraphrased it just for your sake. It goes something like this. When the government or its leaders insist that we adopt their views and become incensed, they become incensed when we don't see things that they are imposing on us the same way. Then they become full of strife, which leads to anarchy, chaos, confusion, and insubordination. And that in turn leads to instability, upheaval, and unrest. And absolutely every kind of dead, decaying, and foul, stinking activities in business. So that's a pretty expansive view of the very same verse. But folks, we are living in days of extreme strife, extreme envy, confusion, and every kind of evil work. It used to be that you could say something that others might not agree with, but by the time you had explained your position and why you were taking that position, they at least would be civil about it and say, well, I can see where you're coming from, but I don't quite agree with you. That seems to have passed away. We seem now to be into this state where I don't agree with you and you don't have the right to say it. One constitutional expert had this to say about university students' understanding of freedom of speech. By definition, what is the freedom of speech? Their answer was this: you have the right to say anything that I agree with. Please help me understand how that can be even sanity. My freedom of speech is you have the right to say anything I agree with. You see how distorted that is? The Bible calls it delusion. The Bible calls it unjust scales. The Bible calls it dishonest scales. The Bible calls that deception. The Bible calls that confusion and every evil work. Why is that so important to us? We're looking at where we are on God's timetable. And the Bible tells us in numerous locations that the world's going to be full of deception. Jesus spoke about deception in Matthew 24, 4 different times. He said even the very elect, the very strongest believers, the very mature intellectual level believers will be subject to deception. Paul said that we would see a lot of deception and seduction and demonic doctrines that would cause people to leave the faith. Paul also said we'd be heading into perilous times. And that's where we seem to live today, in perilous times. So we're getting closer and closer to the end. I hope we're helping you see the fact. And why am I sharing all these negative things? I've found that most people are not aware of what I've been sharing with you. They are totally oblivious to it. They're living in a little bubble. And I've got some verses for you next week that are going to show you better get yourself out of that bubble and realize what's going on. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday. We got another great week of materials for you. Call you blessed. Amen.
Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Insights to the End Times. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to get notified every time we release a new video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right over here. Now, if you'd like to catch the previous episode, you can do that right here, or the entire playlist is right above, right here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next episode of Insights to the End Times.